Hello and welcome to Pest in Class, Expert Voices in Pest Management. Today we talk with Dan Farah, the Chief Administrative Officer at RIDD Pest Control. RIDD has experienced exceptional growth since it was established in 2020 and most recently found themselves on the PCT Top 100 list in 2024. We discuss how RIDD created this momentum, some best practices for running an efficient call center, and the importance of community. I'm your host, Amanda Salvatore. Let's get into it. Welcome to the show. We have Dan Farah with us today. Dan is the Chief Administrative Officer at RIDD Pest Control, a company with locations across the country from Utah to the Carolinas, Virginia, Georgia, and Florida. And they've earned a spot on the PCT Top 100 list in 2024. Congratulations and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much. Happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. You guys have had some incredible growth since you were established in 2020, and I can't wait to get into it, especially talking about office operations. That's something we don't very often get to talk about here, so I'm really excited to get into it with you today. But first and foremost, we have to get to know you on a non-pest level, so let's start with an icebreaker. If you could have any athlete's skill set, who would you choose and why?
I play basketball, or at least I try to. I'm not very good, but so if I could have somebody's powers, I'd probably honestly have Steph Curry's, just because best shooter of all time. I like to shoot the ball. That's what I've done my whole life, for better or for worse. So I would definitely roll with Steph Curry. I think that'd be a lot of fun to be the greatest shooter ever to walk onto a basketball court. So
yeah, he's incredible to watch. I really enjoy watching him play. He is amazing. So I think that is an excellent choice. So let's dive in. How did you find yourself in the pest industry?
like a lot of other people, it was definitely not like a straight path forward, and never envisioned myself in pest control in any way, shape, or form. My last job, I was there for about 9 years. It was just typical corporate job. I thought I'd kind of made it. I'd earned my stripes, liked who I worked with. I was well taken care of. So for about 4 years, I was in the lending department at a bank. Started at 21 years old, just taking phone calls, worked my way up the corporate ladder till I was a manager in the lending department. And then from there, they took me out of the lending department to put me in the software department, which whole new world to me, right? Never had been in software before. But I'd understood kind of the company policies and regulations enough to where they wanted that knowledge to help test their software. Learning to be a software developer, front end and back end. So I was doing all the coding, learning all the gibberish on the back end of things. And then my brother, of all people, he did door-to-door sales. He was a typical salesman, sold at 3 different companies. But then his managers, so 2 of our 3 owners, they decided to break off from the company they were at to start their own pest control company. And so they had the sales side figured out, but they didn't have the office side figured out or the business side figured out at all. So my brother first approached me and said, "Hey, would you ever want to come work for us?" My initial thought was absolutely not. I don't want to work at a startup. I don't know the first thing about pest control. Don't know the first thing about sales. I've never done it. Doesn't pique my interest. But long story short, they made it enticing enough to where I did eventually come over. And it was actually really scary for me, because I went from a very well-established big corporate business to where I'd been there for a long time. I had complete confidence in who I was working with and my managers to not, do me wrong at all, but it made the leap anyway. And so now I'm here at RIDD Pest Control running all the office operations, and it's actually been a lot more rewarding than I thought it would be. And I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, to kind of sum everything up, definitely not a straight line at all, but I'm here nonetheless.
I feel like you have so much knowledge in so many different areas, which I'm sure you're taking along with you. I would love to know about this growth for RIDD. The growth has been exponential since 2020, and you're on the PCT Top 100. What are some of those key factors that have contributed to this success? And honestly, have you used some of this education when applying that?
A lot of it actually came from my previous work experience, kind of seeing how things work on a large scale, seeing how a large corporation runs, a successful large corporation runs. I definitely don't know everything, but I did bring a lot of that to RIDD when kind of all they knew at the time was sales. So for about the first year of RIDD, they didn't, the office was really small, right? They only had about 8,000 or 9,000 customers after kind of their first summer of selling. So they didn't really need anyone to run the office necessarily. But then after that, as they started to scale quicker than they thought they would, thanks to kind of the door-to-door sales force we had, it became, okay, how do we keep our customers? How do we retain our customers the best? How do we put on accounts the most efficient? How do we make sure our technicians are servicing the right amount of homes in the most efficient way possible? Kind of the same stuff you hear from every pest control company. And so that's where they picked on me to come and try and figure that out. And I think the biggest thing that's helped me, specifically with regards to FieldRoutes, is my previous software experience has helped a ton, because no one here knew how to really leverage FieldRoutes. They didn't know how to leverage a phone system, didn't know what integration meant or what an API was. And so again, while I don't know everything, I had enough knowledge to kind of connect the dots a little bit to help kind of scale things to a point where we could also keep scaling to where, things wouldn't crash and burn when we add so many accounts each year.
I feel like FieldRoutes can kind of be a Lamborghini of sorts. And if you're not really, if you don't know how to use it, you're not going to actually be able to enjoy it.
Yeah, no, it's true. And to this day, I'm still learning stuff. That's why I try to jump in on every training I can, every meeting I can, every conference. I love going because I learn something new every time, whether it's from FieldRoutes themselves or whether it's just from someone else in the industry. So yeah, I totally agree. I'm sure I'm still missing stuff in FieldRoutes, but I think we've done enough to be somewhat sufficient. So
That's great. That's great. Yeah, you got to put in the work. It takes some time. It really does. It's extensive. So, when it comes to the office operations, what are some of the best practices that you've implemented in the call center to really improve efficiency and customer satisfaction?
I think the first issue we had to tackle was staffing, and that's an issue every single year, especially with kind of our model of we grow really fast in the summer, which I'm sure a lot of companies do, and then it's kind of really slow in the off season. So it's really hard to figure out how to staff appropriately to where you're not so understaffed that everyone's so underworked and things kind of slip through the cracks, or to where you're not completely overstaffed and you're just wasting tons of your revenue that you work so hard to get on people who are kind of sitting in chairs. So I think data has helped us a lot with staffing. We switched phone systems when I got here, just strictly because I wanted some more reporting. The phone system we have now has great reporting. So we just pour over that data year after year, month after month to say, okay, here's how many customer service calls we had. Here's the staff we had. Here's the hold times, the abandoned calls, all those metrics really matter. And then on top of that, apart from just customer service, you got to staff your retention department. You got to staff your inside sales department. And again, that all goes back to us just kind of pouring over the data of, okay, we put on X amount of customers this year and had this many phone calls. Where did we hurt? And one thing we realized, which kind of seems really simple, but the first 3 hours of our day, we just would get hammered. So we kind of started to hire more part-time people just for the mornings and more seasonal workers to really handle kind of that morning rush. And then they would go home and then the rest of our staff could handle the afternoon to where we weren't overpaying somebody to be there all day. So as far as best practices go, at least for us at RIDD, staffing is really important. It'll always be a problem and it's never perfect. It's really hard to pinpoint exactly how many calls you're going to get, exactly how much kind of task work you have to do on the computer that's off the phones too. And I think that's a big thing that we also realize is that it's a lot more than just taking phone calls. There's a lot more cleanup, a lot of kind of manual work or even automated work or task work that has to be done just in FieldRoutes or any other system that we have. So kind of learning to balancing those two. But yeah, I would say staffing every single time. Staffing really matters.
I want to talk about this cleanup and this task work and saying finding the balance. How do you prioritize when that occurs?
We try to prioritize our phone calls first. We want to make sure we're helping our customers. But not only that, we get lots of internal phone calls too, right? We get lots of internal calls from our sales reps that are stuck or have a question or need some help, or our technicians, same thing, whether they're calling us for an upsell, they have a question about an account, a note that we left doesn't make sense. We talk a lot to our internal coworkers, which is great. I want them to call the office. I want them to get the help they need. I want them to make sure it's done right. And I want to be able to support them for sure. We definitely need to balance that along with doing task work. We get alerts in FieldRoutes. We have to run mini reports. We have to kind of just fix things that are set up wrong. So yeah, we try to kind of spread that out between the entire staff of like, okay, you're assigned to just this location. You're going to do these 4 things every single day. So honestly, just building out a process, building out a routine of, yes, you answer the phone. And when you're not on the phone, here's kind of your list of to-do items that we need done every single day. And then to further that more, it's if they're not here, what happens? What happens to their tasks if they're not there that day? So we kind of have to have backups on top of that. So that's where you got to kind of find that balance. And it can be really tricky, but yeah, just building out processes and making sure there's a backup to everything has really helped us.
Speaking of FieldRoutes, you're in this software every day and you're utilizing it to deal with these calls and to deal with routing. How has FieldRoutes played a part in the efficiency of RIDD?
Kind of going back to what I said earlier, when I first got here, they were using like 2% of FieldRoutes. And so, and like you said, it's like a Lamborghini and you got to use it right. And it's a lot to digest. I'm still learning. But the first thing I did, and this was just because I had previous software experience, was something as simple as reminders to our customers. I was thinking, okay, we were manually sending those each day, each night to every single customer, which was never going to last. And we were just wasting valuable time doing that. And so I thought to myself, I'm like, all right, if FieldRoutes is a decent software, there's got to be some form of automation. And of course, I come to learn later, there's lots of automation, which is great. But yeah, going through and figuring out something as simple as trigger rules and setting up 24 of those for collections, reminders, cancellation emails, ACH failures. There's so much stuff we set up on it that just took out all the manual work and made sure that nothing kind of slipped through the cracks. So that was the first thing that was a huge lift for us, was being able to drop off those manual tasks so we could focus more on just handling phone calls. We could focus more on our customer service. We had more time just to do internal office trainings with everyone so we could further our skills with customer service or sales or retention or whoever. So the automation has definitely played a big part of that. And then the second thing I'll say, because this is the bane of my existence, as it is for many people, is the schedule, right? There's so many ways to schedule your routes. And it's hard to know if you're missing the mark, or it's hard to know if you could maybe just do a little bit better. But I think FieldRoutes does a really good job of giving you a lot of different options to choose from, to how you build your routes, how you schedule your appointments, to how you schedule the recurring appointments. There's lots of flexibility there. And I think we've kind of tried a few things over the past, I've been here about almost 3 years now. We've definitely tried a lot. But I think we found an okay way to schedule. I'm still never satisfied with it because my OCD gets to me when routes are really long or really crazy. But apart from the automation, the flexibility and options with scheduling has really helped us as well. We've definitely cut back on some drive time to the point where we've been able to schedule more stops on our technicians. And obviously, the more they can do within their 8-hour time frame, the better it is for them, because they get paid more, and for us because our customers get serviced.
So before you started really utilizing FieldRoutes, how many stops would happen during the day, and how has it changed since you started utilizing the software?
Yeah. So, I mean, some of it definitely depends on your density, how many customers you have in an area. But when I first got here, we'd only schedule 10 stops, and only about 6 or 7 would get done each day, which we've come to find out is terrible. So now we're scheduling 15 stops with the hope that 9, 10, 11 get done each day. And we're at about 10 and a half stops right now, which we're happy with for where we are, because we do have some new branches that we definitely need to flesh out some density. And once we get a couple of thousand more customers, it'll be easier to kind of increase that number. But yeah, so we've really gone from 6 completed stops to about 10 I think it's like 10.4 completed stops. So again,
that's incredible growth. That's great.
Yeah. So we're satisfied there, but we'll keep pushing that as much as we can as we learn more about scheduling and FieldRoutes.
I have to say, throughout this conversation, the way that you guys are striving to do better, looking at the stats, you guys are doing incredible work. But I love this motivation of utilizing the software and pushing to move forward and have more growth. You guys have an awesome mindset. I would love to talk about Marketing Pro. I know that you recently just implemented it. So how has it helped RIDD with customer communication and retention?
Took the plunge. We've been wanting to. I learned about it at the first Ignite conference 2 years ago now. And we wanted to take the plunge, just wasn't quite in the budget, but it got in the budget this year. Yeah, we're really excited about it, strictly because, again, kind of going back to automation, we love the drip campaigns. Once we set something up, we set it, forget it, and it makes kind of those contacts, those touch points with our customers throughout the life of their contract. So we haven't seen direct results yet because we've only been using it for a few months. I think we'll see most of the results once we add on a bunch of customers this summer and see how that helps us kind of this time next year. But our goal with that is to, again, make sure customers know that we're their pest control company, and make sure they know all the services we offer. So if they only have like pest control and they're seeing something else, they can totally call us and we'll help them out. But we also kind of want to build into their culture that they'll be with us forever, or at least we hope, right? Obviously, there's tons of competition that's great for everyone. But using Marketing Pro to kind of remind them periodically that we have these services, we're their company, they can call us with any questions. If they need a reservice, we'll help them out. And then once their contract's up, this is kind of the big thing we really want to push for is once their contract is up, instead of just kind of keeping it month to month, we want to try and re-sign them for another year or another 18 months or whatever it may be. So we're hoping we can kind of build that into our customers' culture through Marketing Pro. And again, it's very hands off. Once you get it all set up, we've set up a couple drip campaigns and we don't even touch it anymore. It's been great so far. Really, really easy to use. Love the drip campaign and automation to it.
I'd love to ask. I mean, you really are going into this and utilizing the software. I keep saying that, but it's true. What would be your advice to someone who has recently joined FieldRoutes but is feeling overwhelmed and maybe isn't able to really dive in or is nervous to dive in and feels like it's such a huge task?
Yeah, I was totally that person. And some days I feel like I am still. I was definitely that person. But I think the biggest thing I had a challenge with is I wanted to change so much. I wanted to do so much. I wanted to dive into so much. And I really just kind of had to take a step back and say, okay, what are the kind of the fundamental pieces that RIDD needs from FieldRoutes? What are the top three most important things that we have to have as to be successful as a company? And they were very basic things, right? There were things like we need to improve the schedule. We need to send out reminders automatically. And we need to kind of send out collection notices automatically because we don't want to be calling these people every single day when we don't have, funds paid to us. So yeah, to sum that up, my advice would be is stick to the basics and kind of pick your top 2 or 3 items where it's like, okay, we have to have this done in order for our company to be successful, or else you're right, it is very overwhelming. So
Yeah, bite-sized pieces. Find out where your priorities lie and then just make your way down the list. I'd love to pivot now to talk about the Pathfinder network. I know that you're a part of this community. How has participating with this group benefited you?
oh, it's been a huge benefit. Again, at the Ignite conference 2 years ago, when Nick first approached me and told me about it, I wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm 100% going to join it. I didn't have anything against it. I was just already so busy. What's another meeting added to my calendar? I didn't know if I could do it. But again, 2 years ago, I still felt pretty green around FieldRoutes. I didn't totally know everything and still don't, but I knew a lot less back then. And so I decided to join it. It's been a huge benefit, not only to kind of learn what's coming up next, but to network with those also on the Pathfinder network. And I also think it's been very beneficial because I feel like not just my voice, but kind of us as other companies, our voices are heard because FieldRoutes a lot of times will say, hey, here's an idea we have. What do you guys think? And it gives us a chance to be like, hey, you know what? This is great, but this isn't so great. Or, actually that's a terrible idea or that's a great idea, So I love the Pathfinder network. I think it's great camaraderie. I like seeing other people at other conferences, but again, it gives us a chance to kind of really help FieldRoutes out with what we need as a business. So.
How has community played into the growth of RIDD? Has that been something that you've been seeking out and finding that in Pathfinder, or are you finding it in your area?
You kind of find it all over. I've learned because at the end of the day, none of us still really know what we're doing. I know we've built a pretty successful company so far, and that's great. But I know that we can do so much better in so many areas. So it's really nice to talk to other people that have a smaller company or a bigger company. And it's like, okay, how do you go from your size to bigger size, or someone with the same size company? I found that through Pathfinder. I found that through Pest World. I found it through Ignite. I even joined Hive through the National Pest Management Association, again, just so we can meet on a weekly basis to really rub shoulders and bounce ideas off each other. And so I kind of underestimated that when I first started working here. I thought I would just find everything online or just by talking to my coworkers or people I work with. But it's been so beneficial to talk to the community. And I think one thing that really surprised me was when I kind of started going to these conferences and started talking to more people, no one cared to tell you what they did as a company. And I thought like everyone was just like revealing their secrets to me. And I'm like, are you sure you want to like tell me what you're doing? It's a very there's so many of us, but I've just come to find out that I've never been sorry for telling somebody something. It's never like had a negative impact on us. And so it is competitive, but there's a lot to go around. So I think that's what I've liked the most about this industry is we're all just so willing to help each other out and we don't care about any negative repercussions, and there really isn't any. So it's been really good.
I have to agree with you. Anytime I have interviewed someone in the industry and had these conversations at Ignite, everyone is so willing to help and willing to give any advice they can or any tidbits of information that might help someone else out. And it just kind of showcases the industry as a whole of just like honest, humble, good people. It really is a great community. And I'm so glad that you're finding that all over the place. That's incredible. I have to ask, it seems like you guys have so many goals with RIDD that you're climbing up this ladder and that you want to learn as much as possible. So I have to ask, what are some goals that RIDD is interested in accomplishing in 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, sometimes we're a little too ambitious, but I think the goals for this year, because as you know, we're very heavy on the doors. That's how we've kind of had such a quick growth. So I think really the goal this year, I mean, is just to have less go wrong this year than it did last year.
That's
No,
mine too.
I know, right? That should be everyone's goal. But no, the goal is just to really kind of keep supporting the door-to-door force. That's where we get most of our new customers from. So the goal is to keep supporting them and to keep selling clean accounts. We made a big push to sell cleaner accounts last year. Again, in the office, I built out an audit program and it went pretty good last year for first year, but a big goal is not only to keep selling as many customers as we can, but make sure we sell them the right way, if that means walking away from a customer if it's not a good fit. So yeah, really emphasizing clean sales and supporting the sales team. And then a couple years from now, we'll kind of pull back off the doors and try and put more of our focus on our kind of online or inside sales. But yeah, for now, support the door-to-door force and sell clean accounts. That's the mantra for this year.
Incredible. I have no doubt that you guys will accomplish anything you set your minds to. You guys are doing an incredible job. Finally, I have one last question for you before we go. What would be your advice to anyone taking on office operations in pest control, especially when they're starting out?
Good question. I have so much I could say because I made so many mistakes that there's a lot that we could help out with. But I think when you're just starting office operations, I know it sounds a little cliche, but the people matter. Kind of how I was talking earlier, the staff matters. You're only going to be as good as your staff is. You're only going to have really good, kind, friendly, respectful customer service if you respect your people the same way. So the things I emphasize a lot from running an office is, in every interview, I'm in every single interview that we have, when we have people out there, we need to be kind and respectful to each other, but also to our customers, anyone we really talk to. So your people matter. Take care of them as much as you can. Like with us, I wish we could take better care of our people, but with us kind of being a newer company and dedicating so much of our resources to growth, there's not a whole ton we can do, but something as simple as we buy them lunch once a week, right? That makes them so happy. Or we have snacks for them. Or, if it's a really slow day, we'll let them go home early if they want to. And that's made them happier than I thought it would because we don't pay them when they go home. But they love getting out of here early if they can. So, yeah, I think I found the better I can take care of my people, the better RIDD will go. And kind of the flip side to that and the harder side to that is if it's not a good fit for you and this person that you invested 1, 2, 3 months into, part ways sooner rather than later so you both can find a better fit. And that's probably been the biggest thing. That's been the hardest thing for me is being okay with letting people go when it's not a good fit for you or for them and kind of trying to find somebody else that fits the role better. So yeah, your people, that would be my biggest advice.
Incredible. Dan, Farah, thank you so much for coming on to Pest in Class. What a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.